The morning alarm screamed across the prison planet Keto 7 like it did every day for the past 3 years. Hyun rolled off his metal sleeping platform and pulled on his gray work clothes. The fabric was rough against his skin, but he had stopped, caring about comfort long ago. Around him, other human slaves moved slowly in the dim light of their sleeping quarters. "Another day in paradise," muttered Day from the bunk next to him. The older man had been on Keto 7 for 5 years. His face showed every day of it. Hyun said nothing. He had learned that talking too much drew attention from the guards. The Valdris Empire did not like slaves who spoke too much. They preferred quiet workers who did their jobs without questions. The breakfast hall was filled with the sounds of metal trays and tired voices. Hyun ate his protein paste without tasting it. His mind was already on the work ahead. Today he would be working in the breeding facilities again, the place where the Empire kept their most feared weapons. The pale thunder. Most slaves begged not to work in the breeding facilities. The huge white horses terrified everyone who saw them. They were not normal horses. The Empire had changed them, made them bigger and stronger and more frightening than any animal should be. Each one stood, as tall as 2 men and weighed as much as a small transport vehicle. But the size was not the worst part. The worst part was the fear they made you feel. The horses had some kind of power that reached into your mind. When you looked at them, terror filled your thoughts. Your hands would shake. Your heart would beat so fast it hurt. Some people fainted, just from being near them. Others ran away screaming. The Valdris soldiers who rode the horses were not affected because they had special implants in their brains, computer chips that blocked the fear. Without those chips, even the Valdris could not stand to be near their own war horses. Yoon finished his breakfast and walked to the breeding facility with the other workers assigned there. The building was huge and white, with thick walls that kept the sounds of the horses inside. Guard towers watched every entrance. Valdris soldiers in dark armor stood at every door. Commander Rax waited for them at the main entrance. He was tall and thin with gray skin and yellow eyes. Like all Valdris, he looked down on humans as weak and stupid creatures. His voice was cold when he spoke. "Today we have new breeding pairs arriving from the outer rim. You will help prepare their stalls. Do not look directly at the animals. Do not speak to them. Do not touch them unless ordered. Any slave who causes problems will be sent to the Ki-Bu mines." Everyone knew what that meant. The mines were where slaves went to die. The group walked into the facility. The smell hit them first, a mix of hay, metal, and something else. Something that made the hair on your arms stand up. Then came the sounds. Heavy breathing, the scrape of hooves on metal floors, and underneath it all, a low humming that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The other workers stayed close together as they moved through the hallways. Their faces showed the strain of fighting the fear that pressed against their minds. Hyun walked with them, but felt nothing. No terror. No need to run. The presence of the horses was strong, but it did not frighten him. He had never understood why. They reached the main stable area. The ceiling was high above them, supported by thick metal beams. Rows of stalls lined both sides of the wide corridor. In each stall stood a pale thunder. The horses were magnificent and terrible to see. Their coats were pure white, almost glowing in the artificial light. Their eyes were pink or pale blue. Their muscles moved under their skin like steel cables, and they were huge. Even lying down, they were taller than a man. When they stood, their heads nearly touched the ceiling. Most of the other workers could barely look at them. They kept their eyes on the floor and hurried through their tasks, cleaning stalls, filling water troughs, carrying feed buckets, all while trying not to think about the massive creatures watching them. Hyun worked differently. While the others rushed to finish and leave, he took his time. He watched the horses and they watched him back. There was intelligence in their eyes. More than just animal intelligence. They understood things. They made choices. They had thoughts and feelings that the Valdris pretended did not exist. "You there, human?" Commander Rax called out. Hyun looked up from the stall he was cleaning. "What is your designation number?" "Slave 4471, Commander." "Why are you working so slowly? Are you trying to waste time?" "No, Commander. I am being careful not to disturb the animals. Commander Rax studied him with those cold yellow eyes. The animals are secured, they cannot harm you. Work faster. Yes, Commander. But Hyun did not work faster. He continued at the same steady pace. In the stall next to him, a large mare watched him work. Her pink eyes followed his movements. Sometimes she would make soft sounds, almost like she was trying to talk to him. The other workers finished their tasks and left quickly. Soon only Hyun remained in the stable area. Commander Rax had moved on to other duties. The guards at the main entrance could not see into the stalls from where they stood. Hyun approached the mare's stall. She was one of the largest horses he had seen. Her white coat was perfect without a single mark or scar, but her eyes looked sad, tired, like she had been carrying a heavy weight for too long. "Hello, beautiful girl," he said softly in Korean, the language of his home planet, which he had not spoken in years. "You are magnificent, but you are not happy, are you?" The mare's ears moved forward. She stepped closer to the front of her stall. This should have been impossible. The horses were supposed to be aggressive toward anyone without brain implants. They were weapons bred for war, not gentle creatures who wanted company. But this mare was not aggressive. She pushed her huge head toward the stall door, as close to Hyun as the barriers would allow. Her breathing was slow and calm. "What did they do to you?" Hyun whispered. "What did they take away?" The mare made a low sound, not threatening or angry. It sounded almost like she was answering him, like she was trying to tell him something important. Footsteps echoed in the corridor. Someone was coming. Hyun quickly moved away from the stall and picked up his cleaning tools. When Commander Rax appeared around the corner, Hyun was working on a different stall, far from the mare. "You are still here, human?" "Almost finished, Commander." Commander Rax looked around the stable area. The horses were calm. Nothing seemed wrong. But his eyes stayed on Hyun for a long moment before he walked away. When the commander was gone, Hyun looked back at the mare. She was still watching him, still waiting. For the first time in 3 years, Hyun felt something other than emptiness. He felt hope. And he felt the beginning of an idea that would change everything. The Pale Thunder were not just weapons. They were prisoners, just like him. And maybe, just maybe, they were ready to be free. 2 weeks passed before everything changed. Hyun had continued working in the breeding facility, taking every chance to observe the Pale Thunder horses. He learned their individual personalities. The proud stallion in stall 7 who paced when angry. The gentle mare in stall 12 who always tried to touch his hand through the bars. The young colt who seemed curious about everything around him. The horses were not the mindless weapons the Valdris claimed they were. They had thoughts and feelings. They formed friendships with each other. They showed kindness to the few humans who did not fear them. But they also showed anger toward their captors. On the morning that changed everything, Hyun arrived at the facility to find the workers gathering in worried groups. Something had happened during the night. Commander Rax stood at the center of the main stable area, his yellow eyes bright with rage. "One of the breeding stallions has damaged his containment system," he announced to the assembled workers. "Stall 15 is compromised. The animal must be moved to the emergency holding pen for repairs." Hyun looked toward stall 15. He knew that horse well. His name was Thunder, though the Valdris only called him by a number. Thunder was one of the largest stallions with scars on his flanks from training accidents. He had always seemed angry about something. Now his stall door hung twisted and broken. "The animal is agitated," Commander Rax continued. "Approach with extreme caution. Use the shock prods if necessary. We cannot afford to lose a valuable breeding specimen." The workers moved slowly toward stall 15. Their fear was so strong that Hyun could almost smell it. The closer they got to Thunder's stall, the more terrified they became. Some stopped, walking entirely. Others began to shake. Thunder stood in the middle of his damaged stall, magnificent and terrifying. His white coat gleamed under the lights. His pink eyes burned with intelligence and fury. The psychic waves of fear that came from him were stronger than anything Hyun had ever felt from the other horses. "Move faster," Commander Rax shouted. We do not have all day. But the workers could not move faster. 2 of them fell to their knees, overwhelmed by terror. Another turned and ran toward the exit. The remaining few stood frozen, unable to take another step forward. Thunder sensed their fear and became more agitated. He reared up on his hind legs, his hooves striking the air. His mental presence grew stronger, sending waves of panic through everyone in the stable area. Everyone except Hyun. While the others cowered, Hyun walked forward. He moved slowly and calmly, his hands empty and visible. Thunder's blazing eyes fixed on him, but the fear that paralyzed everyone else had no effect. "Easy, boy," Hyun said softly in Korean. "Easy now. No one is going to hurt you." Thunder's ears flicked forward. The great stallion came down from his rear, all 4 hooves hitting the floor with a sound like thunder. He watched Hyun approach, with curiosity instead of rage. "What are you doing?" Commander Rax demanded. "Get back from that animal." Hyun ignored him. He reached the broken stall door and stopped just outside. Thunder took a step forward, bringing his massive head close to the twisted metal bars. Up close, Hyun could see the intelligence in those pink eyes. He could also see something else. Pain. "They hurt you, did they not?" Hyun whispered. "Made you into something you were never meant to be." Thunder made a low sound. Not threatening, but almost like he was agreeing. The psychic aura of fear around him began to fade. Other workers noticed and looked up in amazement. "Impossible," Commander Rax breathed. "How is he doing that?" Hyun reached through the broken bars. Thunder could have bitten his hand off with one movement. Instead, the great stallion gently touched Hyun's palm with his muzzle. His skin was warm and soft like any normal horse. "You remember, do not you?" Hyun said. "You remember what it was like before they changed you." Thunder pushed closer to the bars, wanting more contact. Around the stable, the other pale thunder horses began to calm down as well. The oppressive feeling of fear that always filled the facility started to lift. Commander Rax spoke into his communication device, calling for backup. Within minutes, General Thane arrived with a squad of heavily armed soldiers. The general was older than Commander Rax, with more scars and colder eyes. He studied the scene with interest rather than anger. "Fascinating," General Thane said. "The human has neutralized the animal's psychic defenses." "Shall we terminate him, General?" Commander Rax asked. "This behavior is highly irregular." "No. Bring him to the research laboratory and summon Dr. Vera. I want to understand how this is possible." 2 soldiers grabbed Hyun's arms and pulled him away from Thunder. The moment the contact was broken, the stallion's agitation returned. His psychic aura flared back to full strength, sending everyone except the brain-implanted Valdris into a panic. "Interesting," General Thane observed. "The effect only works when the human is present." They dragged Hyun to a different part of the facility, to rooms he had never seen before. The research laboratory was filled with strange machines and monitors. Dr. Vera was already there when they arrived, a thin Valdris female with pale blue skin and silver eyes. "So, this is our anomaly," she said, circling around Hyun like he was a specimen in a cage. "Tell me, human, what do you feel when you approach the pale thunder?" "Nothing," Hyun replied honestly. "Nothing? No fear? No desire to flee?" "No." Dr. Vera made notes on her datapad. "And what do you think about when you look at them?" Hyun considered his answer carefully. Too much truth might be dangerous. "They are beautiful animals." "Animals?" Dr. Vera's silver eyes narrowed. "They are weapons, carefully engineered instruments of war." "Yes, doctor." But Hyun knew she was wrong. The pale thunder were not weapons. They were prisoners, just like him. And somewhere in their enhanced genetics, they remembered what they used to be, what they were supposed to be. Partners, not weapons. Dr. Vera ran tests on Hyun for hours. Brain scans, blood samples, genetic analysis. She found nothing unusual about his human biology, nothing that explained his immunity to the horse's psychic abilities. "Run the tests again," General Thane ordered when she reported her findings. "Sir, I have run them 3 times. This human is completely ordinary by all measurable standards. Then why can he approach the pale thunder without fear? I do not know, General. But I recommend we continue studying him. This ability could be useful. They returned Hyun to the regular slave quarters that night, but his life had changed forever. Word of what happened spread quickly among the human workers. Some looked at him with awe, others with fear. A few, like his bunkmate Day, looked at him with something that might have been hope. "How did you do it?" Day whispered after lights out. "How did you get so close to one of those monsters?" "They are not monsters," Hyun replied quietly. "They are just scared." Scared? Those things make grown Valdris soldiers wet themselves in terror. Fear makes you do many things, even make others afraid. Day was quiet for a long moment. Do you think they remember being normal horses?" Hyun stared at the ceiling of their sleeping quarters. Outside, the night sounds of Keto 7 filtered through the walls, guard patrols, machinery, and somewhere in the distance the soft sounds of the pale thunder in their stalls. "Yes," he said finally. "I think they remember everything." Dr. Vera's research continued for weeks. Every day they brought Hyun to the laboratory for more tests. Every day she became more frustrated with her results. His blood was normal human blood. His brain showed normal human patterns. Nothing about him was special or different, but in the breeding facility impossible things kept happening. Hyun could walk among the pale thunder without any protective equipment. He could touch them, speak to them, even ride them for short distances. The horses responded to him like he was one of their own kind. Their psychic terror aura disappeared completely when he was near. More importantly, other humans were starting to show similar abilities. Nari was the first. She was a young woman who worked in the feed preparation area. One morning, she accidentally dropped a bucket of grain near one of the stalls. Instead of running away in panic, she found herself calmly picking up the scattered food while the huge stallion watched with interest. "I was not afraid," she told Hyun later. "I should have been terrified, but I felt peaceful." Day was next. The older man had been assigned to repair work in the stable area. When a mare became agitated during the repairs, Day approached her and spoke gently until she calmed down. The other workers watched in amazement as he completed his work with the massive horse standing quietly beside him. "It is spreading," Dr. Vera reported to General Thane. 3 humans now show immunity to the psychic effects. This should not be possible. "What is your theory, Doctor?" "I believe it has something to do with their species' relationship to the base genetic material. Humans and horses evolved together on the same planet. Perhaps there is some kind of biological memory that survives the enhancement process." General Thane considered this. If humans can control the pale thunder without technological assistance, they could be valuable as trainers and handlers. Or dangerous as potential enemies, General. These humans are forming bonds with our weapons. But Dr. Vera's concerns came too late. In the quiet hours between shifts, Hyun had been teaching other humans how to approach the horses, not with fear or aggression, but with respect and kindness, the same way their ancestors had approached wild horses thousands of years ago. The horses responded with surprising intelligence. They began to recognize individual humans and show preferences for certain people. They would only eat from the hands of humans they trusted. They became agitated when their preferred caretakers were absent. Most disturbing of all, they began to resist their Valdris handlers. The first incident happened during a routine training exercise. A Valdris cavalry officer tried to mount one of the stallions for combat practice. The horse, who had been calm and cooperative with Hyun just hours before, became violent and uncontrollable. It threw the officer and nearly trampled him before, being subdued with shock weapons. "The animals are becoming unpredictable," Commander Rax reported. "They respond well to the human slaves, but show increased aggression toward our personnel." "Increase the neural suppression in their implants," General Thane ordered. But the neural implants were not working as designed. Dr. Vera discovered that the horses' enhanced brains were adapting to the technology. They were learning to work around the electronic controls, finding ways to think and feel despite the mechanical restrictions. "They are too intelligent," she told General Thane. "We enhanced their cognitive abilities to make them better weapons, but we also made them capable of independent thought. They are beginning to make their own choices. Then we will remove that choice, increase the suppression systems to maximum levels. General, that could cause permanent brain damage. We might lose the very intelligence that makes them effective, better brain-damaged weapons than rebellious ones." The enhanced suppression systems were installed overnight. When Hyun arrived at the facility the next morning, he could immediately tell something was wrong. The horses seemed dull and lifeless. Their eyes, usually bright with intelligence, were empty and staring. Thunder, the stallion who had first responded to him, stood motionless in his stall. When Hyun approached, Thunder did not react. He did not even seem to recognize him. "What did you do to them?" Hyun demanded when he saw Dr. Vera. "We increased their neural regulation. They are more manageable now." "You are killing them. They are weapons, human. They do not need to be happy." But Hyun could see that the horses were suffering. The enhanced suppression was not just controlling their behavior, it was crushing their spirits. These magnificent creatures, who had shown such intelligence and personality, were being turned into living machines. That night, Hyun made a decision that would change everything. He waited until the facility was nearly empty. Only a skeleton crew of guards remained for the night shift. Most of them stayed in the security office monitoring screens instead of walking patrols. It was easy for someone who knew the facility's routines to move around unseen. Hyun made his way to the main stable area. The horses stood like statues in their stalls, barely breathing. The suppression systems hummed constantly, filling their enhanced brains with electronic interference. He found the main control panel for the neural systems. It was protected by security codes, but Hyun had watched the technicians enter the codes many times. The Valdris thought humans were too stupid to remember number sequences. They were wrong. Hyun entered the codes and began shutting down the suppression systems one by one. It was dangerous work. If he was caught, they would execute him immediately. But he could not watch the horses suffer any longer. The first system shut down with a soft beep. In stall 7, the proud stallion raised his head for the first time in days. His eyes began to clear. The second system deactivated. A mare in stall 12 stepped forward and looked around with growing awareness. One by one, Hyun freed their minds from the electronic chains. As their natural intelligence returned, the horses began to remember who they were, what they had been before the Valdris took them, and what they could become. Thunder was the last to wake up. When his suppression system shut down, he shook his head violently as if clearing away fog. His pink eyes found Hyun immediately, and in them was recognition, gratitude, and something else. Determination. "I know, boy," Hyun whispered. "I know what they did to you. But you are free now, at least for tonight." Thunder stepped to the front of his stall and extended his head through the bars. This time, when Hyun touched his muzzle, both human and horse felt the connection that had been lost for so long, the bond between species that no amount of genetic enhancement or technological control could truly break. Alarms began to sound. Someone had noticed the deactivated suppression systems. Guards would be coming soon. Hyun had maybe minutes before they caught him, but as he looked around at the awakened horses, their eyes bright with intelligence and hope, he knew it had been worth it. For the first time since their creation, the Pale Thunder were truly alive, and they would remember. The guards found Hyun at the control panel, but they were too late. The damage was done. Across the stable area, 30 Pale Thunder horses stood alert and aware, their enhanced minds free from electronic suppression for the first time in years. "Seize him," Commander Rax shouted as soldiers surrounded Hyun, "and reactivate those systems immediately." But when the technicians tried to restart the neural suppression, something unexpected happened. The horses resisted. Their enhanced brains, now fully awake, began to fight back against the electronic controls. Sparks flew from several control panels as the systems overloaded. "They are blocking the signals," Dr. Vera reported in amazement. "Their psychic abilities are interfering with our technology." General Thane arrived within the hour, his face dark with anger. He found Hyun chained in the security office while chaos erupted in the stable area. The horses were not violent, but they were completely uncontrollable. They ignored all commands from Valdris handlers and seemed to be communicating with each other in ways the aliens did not understand. "You have created a crisis," the general told Hyun. 30 of our most valuable weapons are now useless." "They were never weapons," Hyun replied. "They are living beings. They are property of the Valdris Empire, and you have damaged Imperial property. Then fix them yourself." General Thane studied Hyun with cold calculation. "Perhaps we will. But first, you will demonstrate that they can still be controlled. Tomorrow you will give a demonstration of their capabilities for visiting officials. If you refuse, we will execute every human slave in this facility." Hyun felt his heart sink. The general had found the one threat that would force his cooperation. He could accept his own death, but he could not let innocent people die for his actions. "What kind of demonstration?" "Combat exercises. You will ride one of the animals and show that they can still function as cavalry mounts. Our guests need to see that the Pale Thunder program remains viable." The next morning, they brought Hyun to the facility's training arena. It was a huge circular space with high walls and an observation deck where Valdris officials could watch safely. General Thane had invited commanders from across the sector to witness the demonstration. "Remember," Commander Rax warned Hyun, "any attempt at rebellion will result in the immediate execution of your fellow slaves." They led Thunder into the arena. The great stallion's eyes found Hyun immediately, and his relief was obvious. In the past day, the horse had been subjected to multiple attempts to reimpose neural control, all of which had failed. He was tired and stressed, but his mind remained free. "Show them what they want to see," Hyun whispered as he approached Thunder. "But stay ready." Thunder knelt to allow Hyun to mount. It was the first time Hyun had ridden one of the Pale Thunder, and he was amazed by how natural it felt. Thunder's enhanced muscles rippled beneath him, powerful enough to carry them both at incredible speeds. From the observation deck, the Valdris officials watched with interest. They had heard reports of the control problems, but wanted to see the horse's capabilities for themselves. "Begin the demonstration," General Thane commanded. Hyun guided Thunder through basic movements at first, walking, trotting, turning in tight circles. The stallion responded perfectly to every command, showing the grace and intelligence that made the Pale Thunder so valuable. "Impressive," one official commented. "The animal shows no signs of behavioral problems." But as the demonstration continued, Hyun began to reveal capabilities that the Valdris had never seen before. Without neural suppression limiting their intelligence, Thunder could understand complex instructions and make independent decisions. He anticipated Hyun's commands and adjusted his movements for maximum effectiveness. "Increase the difficulty," General Thane ordered. "Show them combat maneuvers." Hyun guided Thunder through attack patterns and defensive moves. The stallion leaped obstacles with ease and demonstrated the speed that made Pale Thunder cavalry so feared across the galaxy. But he also showed problem-solving skills that went far beyond programmed responses. In the observation deck, the officials began to murmur with excitement. These were not the mindless weapons they had expected to see. This was something new and, potentially, much more powerful. "The animal appears to be thinking independently," one commander observed. "How is this possible?" "Enhanced neural development," Dr. Vera explained. "We increased their cognitive abilities to improve battlefield performance." What she did not mention was that the enhanced cognition came with enhanced emotion and enhanced memory. Thunder was not just following commands. He was choosing to cooperate, and he was remembering everything the Valdris had done to him and his kind. As the demonstration reached its climax, Hyun made a decision that would change the fate of the Empire. Instead of ending the show as planned, he guided Thunder to the center of the arena and stopped. "Thunder," he said quietly in Korean, "show them what you really are." The great stallion understood. For the first time since his creation, Thunder allowed his full psychic abilities to manifest without restraint. The mental aura that had been suppressed for so long erupted from him like a psychic storm, but instead of random terror, Thunder directed his power with surgical precision. The fear he projected touched only the Valdris in the observation deck, leaving Hyun completely unaffected. The alien officials suddenly found themselves paralyzed with panic, unable to move or speak. In that moment of chaos, alarms began sounding throughout the facility. The other Pale Thunder, still confined in their stalls, had felt Thunder's psychic call and were responding. Their combined mental voices created a resonance effect that overloaded every electronic system in the breeding facility. Neural suppression devices exploded in showers of sparks. Security cameras went dark. Automated door locks failed, allowing the horses to break free from their stalls. 30 Pale Thunder, their minds clear and their power unleashed, began moving through the facility toward the arena. "Stop this, General." Thane shouted over the alarms, but his voice was weak with fear. Thunder's psychic assault had affected him too, despite his neural implants. "I cannot stop what was always meant to be," Hyun replied. The arena doors burst open as the other horses arrived. They moved with coordination that terrified the Valdris observers. These were not random animals acting on instinct. They were intelligent beings working together toward a common goal: freedom. Thunder reared up on his hind legs, his hooves striking the air in a gesture of defiance that every horse understood. Around the arena, his companions answered with their own calls. The sound echoed off the walls like thunder from an approaching storm. In the observation deck, the Valdris officials finally found the strength to flee. They ran for the exits, their terror overriding their military training. Behind them, General Thane tried to maintain control, but his commands fell on deaf ears. The age of Valdris dominance over the Pale Thunder had ended. Hyun looked around at the magnificent creatures surrounding him. 30 pairs of intelligent eyes looked back, waiting for his signal. These horses had been created as weapons of oppression, but they had chosen to become something else. Partners in revolution. "Are you ready, my friends?" Hyun asked in Korean. Thunder's response was not words, but Hyun understood it perfectly. They were ready. They had been ready for a very long time. The real demonstration was about to begin. The revolution began with 30 horses and 1 human, but it did not end there. Within hours, word of the Keto 7 uprising spread across the prison planet. Human slaves in other facilities heard that their people had escaped on the backs of Pale Thunder horses. The impossible had become possible. Freedom was within reach. More uprisings followed. In the mining complex, slaves overpowered their guards and seized weapons. In the manufacturing plants, workers shut down production and barricaded themselves inside. Across Keto 7, the Empire's control began to crumble, but the most important change was happening in space. News of the rebellion reached other worlds through secret communication networks that the Valdris had never discovered. On distant planets, human slaves heard that the Empire's ultimate weapons had turned against their masters. The story grew with each telling, becoming a legend of hope in the darkest corners of the galaxy. Hyun knew none of this as he rode Thunder through the corridors of the breeding facility. Behind him, the other Pale Thunder carried human riders who had never imagined they would live to see freedom. Day rode a gentle mare named Snow. Nari had chosen a young stallion she called Storm. All around them, the partnership between human and horse was being reborn. The facility's remaining guards tried to organize resistance, but they faced an enemy they did not understand. The horses moved with tactical intelligence that surpassed anything in their programming. They anticipated defensive positions and coordinated their attacks with military precision. More importantly, their psychic abilities had evolved beyond simple fear projection. Working together, they could create focused mental effects that disabled electronic systems and disrupted enemy communications. The Valdris found their advanced technology useless against opponents who could think faster than their computers. "The main hangar," Hyun called to his companions as they fought their way through the facility. "We need to reach the transport ships." But General Thane had anticipated this move. He had sealed the hangar and positioned his best troops there with heavy weapons. As the riders approached, automated guns opened fire from concealed positions. Thunder swerved to avoid the energy blasts, his enhanced reflexes moving faster than human thought. Around him, the other horses scattered and regrouped, using hit-and-run tactics that confused the Valdris defenders. "Surrender now and you will be granted quick deaths," General Thane's voice echoed from hidden speakers. "Continue this rebellion, and you will suffer for days before you die." Hyun's answer was to guide Thunder in a charge directly at the hangar doors. The great stallion's hooves struck the reinforced metal with the force of a battering ram. Behind him, 10 more horses joined the assault. The doors, designed to withstand conventional weapons, buckled under the combined impact of 11 pale thunder. They burst into the hangar to find General Thane waiting with his elite guard. The Valdris commander had activated his combat armor and carried a plasma rifle capable of killing even a pale thunder with a single shot. "You have destroyed everything," he snarled at Hyun. "Decades of genetic engineering ruined by one stupid human." "We did not destroy anything," Hyun replied. "We just reminded them who they really are." The battle that followed was brief, but decisive. The Valdris guards were skilled warriors with superior weapons, but they faced opponents who fought with perfect coordination. The horses moved like a single organism, attacking from multiple directions while their psychic abilities disrupted enemy equipment. When the fighting ended, General Thane lay unconscious on the hangar floor, his plasma rifle melted by psychic interference. His guards had fled or surrendered. The way to the transport ships was clear, but Hyun made a choice that surprised everyone, including himself. "We are not leaving," he announced to his companions. "What do you mean?" Day asked. "The ships are right there. We can escape." "Escape to where? To hide in the outer systems while the Empire continues to enslave our people? No. We have something more powerful than ships now." Hyun looked around at the magnificent horses surrounding him. In their eyes he saw intelligence, determination, and something else. Hope for a future that neither species had dared to imagine. "We have the truth," he continued. "The truth that humans and horses are meant to be partners, not masters and slaves. The truth that fear and domination cannot defeat cooperation and trust." Over the following days, that truth spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The story of Keto 7 inspired rebellions on a dozen worlds. Human slaves who had never seen a pale thunder began to resist their captors, believing that freedom was possible. More importantly, other pale thunder facilities began to experience their own uprisings. Horses who had been suppressed for years suddenly remembered their partnership with humans. They turned against their Valdris handlers and sought out human allies. The Empire tried to contain the revolts, but they had made a critical error in their original design. By enhancing the horses' intelligence and psychic abilities, they had created beings capable of communicating across vast distances. The Pale Thunder were sharing information and coordinating their actions on a galactic scale. Within 6 months, the Valdris Empire began to collapse. Their most feared weapons had become the instruments of their destruction. Worlds that had been oppressed for centuries threw off their chains and declared independence. Hyun found himself at the center of a movement he had never intended to create. Humans and horses throughout the galaxy looked to him for leadership, calling him the first rider and asking him to guide their struggle for freedom. But he was not interested in becoming another conqueror. Instead, he worked to establish something new. A confederation of worlds where humans and Pale Thunder served as partners and protectors, rather than masters and weapons. The final confrontation came when the Valdris Emperor himself arrived at Keto 7 with the last loyal fleet. The old ruler demanded surrender and promised mercy for those who laid down their arms. Hyun met him in the same arena where the revolution had begun. This time, he was not alone. 50 Pale Thunder stood with him, their riders representing every human world that had joined the rebellion. "You have won nothing," the Emperor declared. "Without us, you will destroy yourselves. Humans are too primitive to govern themselves." "Perhaps," Hyun agreed, "but we will not be alone." Thunder stepped forward, and his psychic voice touched every mind in the arena. Not with fear or pain, but with images of hope. Visions of worlds where children played beside young horses, where human and Pale Thunder explorers traveled to distant stars together. where partnership replaced domination as the foundation of civilization. The Emperor's guards, affected by the vision, began to lower their weapons. Some removed their helmets and knelt in surrender. The future thunder showed them was more beautiful than any empire built on fear. Years later, when historians tried to understand how the Valdris Empire fell so quickly, they would focus on military tactics and political factors. But those who lived through the revolution knew the truth. It ended the way it began, with trust between species who were meant to be partners. Hyun lived to see the first generation of children born on free worlds, human and pale thunder, young growing up together without fear or chains. He watched former slaves become teachers, explorers, and leaders of a new kind of society. And sometimes, in the quiet hours before dawn, he would ride thunder across the plains of New Terra, the first world settled by the Confederation. Behind them, the rising sun painted the sky in colors that neither Valdris nor human had names for. They were the last riders of the old age, and the first riders of the new. Partners in a future that fear could never destroy.